Warm welcome to a Podful of Saints on Wednesday, the 2nd of November 2022. It's all going smoothly so far. This is Series 4, Episode 14, and we have a special guest tonight, so we'll get straight on introducing him, making a return appearance from the Herts Advertiser. It's the mouth of the Tyne himself, Neil Metcalfe.
That's a nice welcome. You've thrown us with that, Cheers, everyone.
Why your mouth of a Tyne, Neil? Is it as wide as a Tyne? Is that what it is, or
It just spews out the same old rubbish as the Tyne?
Yes.
You're in good company there, mate.
Yes, and saying that was Lee Wood. Good evening, Lee.
Good evening, gentlemen. How the devil are we?
Very well. And Jake, are you okay? Because you looked so happy last night.
I haven't stopped smiling since. Very good, Dave. I hope everyone is well.
Yes. It's a very good picture of you last night, smiling your head off. I tried to print it off, Jake, and couldn't get it. God, he looked as miserable as sin, Lee. I'll send it later. And that was after the 6th goal. You want to see him when we're 6 down, honestly. Anyway, we got a game to talk about before that one, before we ridicule Jake more than usual. Last Saturday, Clarence Park, St City 1, Dulwich Hamlet 2. We got off to a great start, and it looked quite promising early on, didn't it? Yeah. What did you think, Lee, or the way we started?
I thought it was superb. I thought it was really, really excellent. You can see that there was purpose there, and under Nobby now, the players, the key players in key positions are playing with a lot more confidence and a lot more freedom, but without losing their shape too much. And then we scored the goal, and I don't know what it was. We just sort of seemed to let them back in it. We let them settle too much. But again, I thought entertainment-wise, the first half in particular was absolutely extraordinary. He really was.
Blimey. I wouldn't go quite that far. Well, of course I wouldn't, but yeah, I thought it looked quite good. The problem was his team selection. He went for 3 at the back, which no complaints about that.
Yeah.
It's not so much his selection. That makes it sound like it was his fault as manager. Maybe it is, but he was restricted in what he could choose. Obviously, Michael Johnson was out injured, so Dylan What's-his-face came in for his debut, Dylan Berry. He had no Joy McKenna for whatever reason. I don't know if he's injured or whatnot. Obviously, no Michael Clark. And so he put Kyran Wiltshire in the back 3. And that was where it went wrong, wasn't it?
He got absolutely rinsed. And that's being kind to him, if I'm honest. But that said, I think I wouldn't have gone with Ches Isaac in the middle of the park either. The Ches Isaac project for me isn't working. I don't expect him to be a box-to-box runner like Hugh Dawson, far from it. But I think a man of his girth shouldn't be pushed off the ball as easy as what he is, and he should be able to put a tackle in every now and again. But I think that's where Nobby probably got it wrong. But Kyran Wiltshire was getting exposed, and he was getting no help because obviously Devontae was asked to go up and down, and the wing backs are asked to attack, and something's got to give. And I felt for Wiltshire a little bit, but it's very easy to sort of lump on the back 3-5 when the midfielder are not really getting hold of the play and letting the opposition settle in the middle of the park too much.
Yeah, Nobby changed it at half time, but in many ways the damage was done by then. What did you make of it, Jake?
Yeah, I think, like Lee said, the first half hour, 45 minutes was an extraordinary game, and it was back to front constantly. One of the supporters that was there described it to me as a basketball game. It was just constantly, but I think that was mostly down to the Saints going forward looking good, but defensively, probably the worst we've looked at the season, arguably, at the back. It was so open, and as we've all said, the back 3 with Kyran didn't work, and I feel sorry for Kyran. That's not his natural position. I don't think he would have been expecting to play there this season. And of course, the own goal. But yeah, I think it just didn't work. And then second half as well, to start it the way we did with absolutely bizarre penalty, wasn't it, to give away? And it just felt like it was never really going to come back. The shape second half worked. We had a lot more of the ball, but it never felt like it was going to be our afternoon after they scored that penalty. And that's the way it was in the end.
With that makeshift defence in front of him, it's a different game difficult game for Dylan Berry to come into to make his debut. Was he 19 years old? But he didn't do anything wrong, did he?
No, I thought he looked all right. I think he looked fairly composed on Saturday against a decent outfit in Dulwich. He made some decent saves and he looked comfortable. He's got really good distribution as well, I think, which will help because we know Michael Johnson's got that. And of course, you know, he's a City fan. He had a season ticket at Clarence Park back in the day. So, you know, everyone's welcome. So no, I was impressed with him, and I thought, you know, if we had to bring in a replacement, I think MJ's on it for 2 months, isn't he? I think Dylan will be an adequate replacement.
I thought Dulwich, considering where they were actually a stronger side than their league position suggests, and in the end, they deservedly won the game. What did you make of them, Lee? I know you're not usually bothered about the opposition.
I would question whether they deservedly won the game, because if you think about it, they had an own goal, or you know, and the fact that we had an absolutely comical penalty awarded to them. Take those two out of the equation, I think they exposed us a lot more in the second half when we were pushing for the win, which you're going to get anyway. I would seriously question whether they were the better side. Yes, they've got some good players, but there's a reason why they're struggling to gel. You know, relatively new manager, they've hit a bad run of form themselves. I thought we were, listen, first half defensively we were shocking, and the penalty that we gave away was absolutely comical. Nothing less. But I thought we were good value for at least something out of the game. I mean, you know, we're just looking at individual mistakes, lapses of concentration, but again, you know, it's a team game, and I think that the fault very much lies in terms of the way we set up in the first half. But that's the thing that Nobby going to learn from. And I think the midfield is a key area now, because I think we're scoring goals and we're not letting sort of too many in. So we get the midfield settled, I think we could be a decent outfit again.
It's funny, on the way out the ground, I bumped into two supporters separately. Both been going for a long time. One said, I enjoyed that game. And the other one said, that was as bad as it gets at times. I thought I veered more towards the first one. I thought it's a bit more entertaining than that. But there were bits about it, and you think, oh, we are going to struggle. But I think that was more down to what was forced on Nobby rather than it being his team selection.
Yeah, I think there was quite a few comments after the game, actually, I saw online sort of saying, oh, it's back to the old days. And I didn't really get that. I didn't think it was that bad. And, you know, second half, we might not have created as much as we probably could have, but we still had chances. Tafari Moore, especially 5 minutes from the end, with that one that straight at the keeper from really close range, which probably should have scored, really. But no, there's always going to be hiccups, isn't there, with a new manager? Always, especially with a manager that has not really got much experience on the touchline. There's always going to be hiccups. And I say, when his hand is forced with the team selection as well, it was annoying, of course, and it was a game that we were targeting for 3 points just because of Dulwich's league position. But it really wasn't the end of the world, I didn't think, performance-wise.
Moving on from that to last night at
how do we get on
the Beveree? I don't know. Yeah, Jake was there. We'll ask him in a minute, but he was bored to tears. Nobby made 3 changes. He stuck with his 3 at the back, 3-5-1-1, I think it was. But the changes were significant. Joy McKenna came in, so you had a proper defender at the back there, which meant Kyran could go into midfield quite happily, like he did the second half Saturday. Ricardo Di Trolio came in at the left side of that 3, and Mitchell Weiss, give it his correct pronunciation, I know nobody gives it advice, tucked in behind Shaun Jeffers. And I thought the 2 most influential players out there were Mitch and Zane Banton. Now we'll go over to Neil here, because it's the first time I think you've seen us since the defeat in the FA Cup, wasn't it, Neil?
It was. Last one was the Sudbury game, so it was a hell of a lot better, as you would have imagined. It was really good. I was really impressed, to be fair. From the first minute, even before you got to the goal, there was a little bit of a spring in the step from the City players. And like you say, I thought Zane was excellent from the first minute. Mitchell Weiss really grew into the game. You can see what he brings. He brings that dynamism, going forward, pushing forward. Tafari Moore had an excellent game and had so much room, especially in the first half. Tailed off a bit in the second, but I thought he was excellent as well. But it was just once the goals went in, you could see the confidence growing. It was just with the ball at the feet, people were suddenly making runs. There was passes to be made. There was one-touch passing going on. I can't remember the last time I saw that. And that's probably even going before and beyond the Forest Green game. It's been such a long time since I've seen a City side play like that. I mean, you've also got to sort of temper it ever so slightly by the fact that you only had about 6 shots and you scored with every single one of them. But the play going forward was a joy to watch. And if you do that more week in, week out, you'll win more than you lose. It's guaranteed.
It's funny you say about the number of shots. We probably didn't have a lot more than the 6. You're right. And Jake, you mentioned the chance that Tafari missed on Saturday. Well, he's finishing for those first 2 goals last night. They were clinical, weren't they?
Absolutely superb. Both of them, he just took them so well. I think the first goal, I think we have to compliment the build-up play and especially the pass by Mitch. Absolutely brilliant to get it out to him. But the second goal as well, I thought that was a superb finish. Just to take a touch, bend it away. He looked like a natural goal scorer, didn't he? And, you know, that freedom he's got in this new formation, and it probably would have been the same for Devontae on the offside if he'd played last night. It's absolutely superb. And it's bringing out the best in both the fullbacks. And it's just delightful to see. And it, as Neil says, the confidence in the team, almost straight from the kickoff. I think a lot of it came from having Mitch up front. He was winning so many balls. He was chasing a lot. But also I thought, you know, and Lee mentioned them central midfield. I thought the return of Hugh Dawson in there was really welcome. He might not have been spectacular, might not have done a lot of eye-catching stuff, but he had the legs in there to win the ball, spray the simple passes about, and he was always looking forwards as well, which is what you want. So overall, from back to front, superb result. But as I say, a couple of standout players there, and again Zane as well. It's the old Zane back, isn't it?
Well, you mentioned Zane earlier, Neil. Those 2 goals he got when we thought Tafari's were good goals, and Zane's weren't far behind.
I wouldn't care. I said in the first half, when I was doing the live blog, took a short corner in the first half, and I went, you never score from a short corner. 5 minutes into the second half, I mean, yes, rubbish defending from a Hampton point of view, and the goalkeeper shouldn't be beat at the near post, but it was just a lovely, well-worked training ground move. Zane Banton to, I can't remember who got it initially, went into Kyran, little ball into the box, which Zane had run onto, and then he just cut it inside the near post, and it was simple. It was simple, but at the time, my God, was it needed as well, because Hampton, I mean, he scored 3 goals in the first 12 minutes of that second half. Hampton could have scored 4 or 5 in the first sort of time. So Nobby said it last night after the game, says it was goals at the right times as well. It wasn't just good goals, it was goals at the right time. And so it was just one of those perfect performances.
You're right there about Hampton. The chances they had, if they had got a couple of those, it could have been 3-3, and it obviously would have been a totally different game. It's just one of those nights where everything went our way.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those typical. They could have played till Tuesday and not scored. I mean, there was one great save in there from Beveree, which has got to be said. The way he scooped, free header at the back post, and he just scooped it off the line with big paw and just got it away. But yeah, the road they look as well. There was a ball across the box that bounced a couple of times. I think bounced over, Hampton's feet both times, and was managed to clear. There was a Beveree give it away, and Babalolas missed the sitter. So I mean, road they look at times, but at the other end, it was just clinical. And I mean, really is. I mean, when was the last time Saints were that clinical?
By the way, Neil, I thought we did play on Tuesday. We haven't mentioned Kyran Wiltshire's 2 goals, but they were very similar to the other 4 in that they weren't hammered into a net. They were all placed, weren't they? It was lovely to see finishing like that, just rather than just wild slashing, which we saw at the other end of the pitch from Tommy Wood and Temi Babalola, both in great positions, and they slashed the ball virtually into the Thames. We were so calm and clinical.
Yeah, and it was great to see just players shooting, wasn't it? I know we talk about being calm and clinical, but actually having shots on target. How much at the start of the season were we talking about the lads just not getting any shots away at all. It's totally different now. It's absolutely superb. But a lot of that, I think, as well, comes from the build-up play and allowing them to get into those positions. I thought last night at times, as I think defensively a little bit suspect, but going forward, I remarked to a supporter once we went 2-0 up, they look like all players that have been coached by David Noble, one of the best passers we've seen at the club in the last 10, 15 years, because the clinical and the qualityness of the passing at times was unbelievable. It was just so swift and so easy going forward. And of course, Hampton weren't great at all. They've got their issues. But almost every pass went where it was meant to. And it was just really basic. It wasn't any Hollywood balls, nothing spectacular. Just move forward, keep it on the ground, and chances will come. And it was almost perfect.
I think as well, you're talking about the passing, and you're right, the passing was great, but you've also got to credit the movement. I mean, the first goal, the little spin off the defender by Zane to go into the corner. I mean, the ball just needs to be chipped into the space, and the fact the run is going to do the hard work. And that was just one instance of many of just, great little runs off the ball. Players suddenly wanting the ball. So often in the past, we're talking about, they don't look like they want it, so it goes backwards or it goes sideways or it goes safe. But here's the players who wanted to get the ball and go that way, head towards the opposition goal. So it was great to see.
You mentioned Hampton have got their issues, Jake. They certainly have. They lost 3-0 at home to Braintree Town on Saturday, and they lost 3 players through injury in the first half alone, which might have contributed to that defeat. None of those 3 played last night, so I think they were probably a bit stretched. It may have been a good time to play them, but you've still got to turn it on, and we did it. And what I liked in the second half, although we did try to keep possession, we didn't sit on what we had. We got forward when we could, and that's how you like to see it played. Don't sit on what you got. You got your foot on the opposition's throat, go for the kill.
It reminded me of the season we stayed up, 15-16, that final run-in, the attacking football, the constantly wanting to get forward, go forward, get shots away, pass the ball around in the final third. Yeah, it was really, really rewarding. And I think it's been a long time since our last 6-0 win away from home in the league, isn't it, Dave, I believe? Just over 100 years?
Yeah, exactly by that score. I missed that game. It was 1914. Is it Great Western Railway?
You were at school, Tabs, were you?
Yeah. Yeah, final year, Lee. It must have been a tough one for you to miss last night, Lee.
Yeah, but someone's got to work though, mate. It's what I would say, Jake, pick up on your point there, mate. It reminded you of the season that we stayed up. What is the similarity between that season and where we are now? New managers coming in, and Neil, to pick up on what you think, Banton has been a revelation for the last month. What you saw last night isn't a fluke. It isn't a one-off. He's been doing that. He's been looking hungry for the good part of a few weeks now. And isn't it weird how just a new face in the changing room and people's confidence and people's composure, it just goes up another level now. And as you say, it is a real joy to watch, because even you can take defeats, but the way in we were getting beaten at the start of the season, it was hardly palatable at all. Now we're creating chances and we're scoring goals in the process, and it is a delight, in so much that you want to see us an Albans City side attacking. And yes, okay, we're not always going to get it right, but hopefully with this foundation of really core young players as well, hungry players, the times could be changing, fellas.
I mean, Lee, just there, it's confidence. Is it just that, or is it just have players actually suddenly got their finger out now and are actually playing?
Well, we spoke about this. We spoke about this. I would hope that after Ian got the sack, the players looked at themselves and think, my performances have contributed to that, without question. Have I done everything that I wanted to? Because you get the general impression that Ian had the changing rooms and he was much loved and he was well respected and all of that jazz, but something wasn't quite connecting. So is it the case of, the players have given themselves a kick up their own arse, or is it the case of now that Nobby and what he's saying to them and the formation has given them such a freedom such a freedom that they're going out and express themselves. Maybe he's told them, look, fellas, I might not be here in 2 weeks' time, but I want you to really go out now and perform for the shirt, perform for the fans, but more importantly, perform for yourself, because you have not been shining a light in anyone's radar in terms of the footballing world for quite a few months. Taz has gone home. But so I don't know whether it's the players that have just given themselves the impetus, or whether Nobby has just got this magical touch. But players like Banton, Dawson, who was a fringe player under Ian, really, he's pivotal in the way that system plays now. You know, if they change the system, maybe he's not so much, but he is the absolute nucleus. He's the rocket. He gets the foot in. He gets the passes out quickly. The energy as well. Wiltshire. Akinola's got to come back. Devontae Stanley has been my player of the season by a country mile, purely because I questioned him when at the start of the season I didn't know whether his head was going to be right. Again, another player. Jeffers blows hot and cold, but he needs the support, you know. And I think the whole core team is there. We still need a couple of quality players, but on the whole, Nobby's got a really good set to work with.
It's funny, isn't it? Tafari Moore is probably up there with Devontae at the moment. And why Devontae was dropped would have surprised a lot of people yesterday. I don't know the reason, but Nobby obviously felt comfortable doing it. Tafari Moore comes to us as right back. Ian switches him to left back. He looks good there. Nobby pushes him forward to wing back. And he looks so comfortable there. It's given a new dimension to the whole team, having him there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had doubts over Tafari at the start of the season, especially when Mackay Townsend West came in, and it looked like, oh, how does Tafari Moore fit into this team? But you know, Mackay West's injury issues have allowed Tafari a chance, and he's taken it with both hands, hasn't he? And it's absolutely spectacular to see. It's really good. And yeah, both fullbacks. I mean, that's the thing we forget about last night. We had Monash Sunday playing sort of right wing back, didn't we? He didn't have the greatest evening, I think it's fair to say. So you can imagine what we've been able to achieve if we had Devontae banging down that side. It'd been absolutely superb. So yeah, it's really good to see. And as we said before, you know, the defensive groundwork had already been laid this season. The defence was improved, and Nobby's just improving everything else at the minute.
You haven't seen much of us this season, Neil. What did you expect when you got to the Beveree last night?
Well, being away from home, I was expecting more than perhaps, you know, you would have seen at Clarence Park. But I did expect better. I mean, looking at the results from afar since Nobby's took over, it's looked better. It's looked more pleasing. I know you guys have been sort of happier. So I was just interested to see. I was going there with a sort of open mind. I was just like, right, let's see what the difference is. Because like you say, the last time was the Sudbury game and they were god awful. And there was some players there who should have been booted all the way back from Suffolk. But didn't get that last night. I saw players who were suddenly up for it. And there was that little moment before the first goal went in when De Trollios headed it off his own crossbar. And there was just a few corners and Hampton were just looking for something. But that was the only time really that in that first half, especially where Saints looked off key. Everyone was playing in the right way. Maybe they are playing for their shirt, for their future. Maybe, you know, they've got an idea of what's coming down the line more than the rest of us have. So they're thinking, right, we're going to have to actually do something here. But no, I was pleased with the attitude more than anything. The performance comes from that, as far as I'm concerned. Once you've got the attitude right, you'll get the performance, and if you get the performance, you get the results. So, no, it was great.
Let's have a look at Nobby then. He's taken over as interim manager when Ian got booted out, or asked to leave, whichever way you want to look at it. And they've dawdled on making a new appointment. It doesn't go on this long. If you're interviewing people, why you give them a second interview, I don't know. If you don't get your answers right feel on the first one, I don't know why you need a second one with a football manager. Do you think he's edging towards Nobby now? But before we move on to that, you've got an email or something, I believe, Jake, in support of David Noble.
Yeah, supporter tweeted us earlier or sent a direct message, which you can do at a Podful of Saints on Twitter. Basically, it was, how can they not appoint David Noble now? The improvements of, to quote the response, the improvements have come regularly from Hugh and giving Kyran more freedom in midfield, introducing wing backs who are more well suited to the role, and giving Zane a more central and freer role, and just generally playing with a bit more haste and willingness to get forward. So I think we all echo that, don't we? Sort of, it's only the home form now that is an issue, and that's from Phil. Thank you very much. That home form is the main hurdle now. But yeah, in my mind, how can you not? And I think you mentioned the interviews there, Dave. It's worth mentioning that the Trust put out an update over the weekend. They'd spoken to Lawrence Levy, chairman, and he said that the club was conducting, was it first and second stage interviews this week on Monday and Thursday? So as you say, clearly, we haven't got particularly far in the process yet.
All right, Philip Eaton, thanks for your message. Been going a long time, so he knows what he's talking about. How do you see it, Lee? The manager's going now. Do you give it to Nobby, or do we still hang on and wait to see if anybody else is coming in?
I would like Nobby to have it. My concern is, does he really, truly want it? Because the thing is now, he was obviously told once Ian and Chris left, so right, you've got to steady the boat, hold the fort until we can get someone else in. We're going to have players, we're going to have people coming in, applying for the job, blah, blah, blah. He's almost forced the hand of the owners to hold off a little bit because, God forbid, we've got a couple of good results now. And if the owners were to put Nobby to one side and bring in this new fella, he doesn't hit the ground running, the results don't go too well, they're going to look again with egg on their face. But that is the price you pay for having to go through this whole process. Are they still having these interviews with managers just out of respect for the people that have applied the first time around? Is that the process that they're sort of going down? Or do they honestly think, or have they had conversations with Nobby? Does he really want it? He said he'd like it, but if you listen to his post-match last night, he's obviously, and obviously Neil, I read this on your blog there, mate. He's finding it tough to get the balance between the work and the football. It's very tiring now, and he's only the interim boss. So God knows what it's going to be like if he was to take it up full time. He's going to have twice as many phone calls and twice as many dilemmas to deal with, agents and stuff like that. I hope they give it to him as long as he wants it.
Neil?
Well, yeah, that's what he said. I mean, sort of caught him afterwards for a bit longer chat than what was on the video, and I was trying to push him to see how he was feeling about the job and this, that, and the other. Let's not get away from it. He wants to be a football manager. He does want that. He'd want that role. But I think what surprised him is the fact, like Lee said there, that everything that comes with it, he's not having time to switch off. He's up a ladder, laying blocks, and he's like, who am I picking this weekend? And what about this passing drill? And I think it's caught him by surprise. And maybe he's put that seed of doubt in his mind. Does he want this full time? Because he's got to do the other job at the minute. That pays the bills, that puts food on the table, as he says. So that's what comes first. If the club offer him the job, will he be able to do it on a more or less full-time basis? Would that be the way they go down the... I don't know. I don't know. He will take it. If it gets offered, he will snap the hand off. And I did try to push Lawrence last night as he was walking past, saying, like, results like that do tend to turn caretakers into full-time managers pretty quickly. And he kept his head down and wouldn't sort of be drawn on it. But he will have now something to think about. I do think they'll go elsewhere at the minute, but the longer this run goes on, the longer they've got to actually get the right person in.
Well, this run, Neil, consists of one game unbeaten so far. It's quite impressive.
Well, I mean, 2 defeats out of... I mean, when Ian went, I made the point that maybe it's over the course of the last 12 months, you can see why, but over the course of this season, this team is a mid-table team. So, 9 games, 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. That's probably about right where you would expect. Nobby's just injected that bit of confidence into the team, but it's still the same team. There was still, as much as it was a great night last night, there was still things not brilliant. Like Jake's mentioned, the defence wasn't exactly perfect, and against better teams like you had against Ebbsfleet last week, you'll get punished. But Nobby's given the owners this time, or the four, apparently the secret club of 4 who's making the decision. They've given them time to come up with a plan, to come up with the right person, to set in place the blocks that are needed, not just the personnel. It's what's in the background, what's going to back this guy up. So
Can I just ask, don't you see a scenario where they give it to him until the end of the season?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It makes things easy. I mean, the one thing I think Nobby's not got going for him is his contact book. I don't know if, I mean, he's played a lot of games at this level, but has he got the sort of list of contacts if he needs to go out and get players? We don't know who got the goalkeeper. It's quite possible that was a Dean Austin sort of one who knew him from his youth days because he's in your Harpenden lad or something like that. And so he's might have had him at knocking about the doors, or he knew about him. So there was
He was at Northampton as well. I wasn't he
Right.
when Austin was there. But what I'm saying as well is that if Austin's got the contacts and Nobby's getting the best out of the players that are given to him, that's the perfect scenario because Dean's doing his role and Nobby's doing his role. You know, I would be very, very surprised if you get because they advertise for a head coach, right? And I would be very, very surprised if you get people coming down the ladder to come to it. They're looking for an up-and-coming, person of equal parity in our league, maybe even below, for him to be moulded and developed. But you've got one right on your doorstep in terms of Nobby, and I don't see the reason why we should force the issue if the situation we've already got ourselves into here is doing absolutely fine, more than fine, in comparison to what we had 2 months ago. So, but again, it's just gone.
Sorry, Lee.
No, go on.
So you talk about a backup or a team for Nobby, whatnot, because what Ian Allison had in the summer, in coaches he had last season, we lost Steve Hoffney, I think it was in the summer. Ian obviously went, then Steve Conroy went, and Chris Winton, the assistant manager, went. So we lost all our backroom staff in many respects. Nobby at the moment, all he's got is John Meeks. He's got a goalkeeping coach as well, of course, Peter Russell. That's his dad. Does he need to get somebody in there with a bit more experience to help him, as you say, because his contacts book probably isn't the fattest in the world?
But then if Dean Austin is, like Lee says, has got the contacts to go and get these young kids and supplement them in, it's, to be honest, that's the way I've always thought that the director of football thing works. A manager says to him, right, I want X, Y, and Z, or positions filled, go out and sort it. That's,
Mate, you've absolutely hit it on the head. Dean Austin has always wanted to be involved in the running of the football club without having all the hassle of being the manager. So he's now in a prime opportunity now because he can get to pick the players who comes in, and Nobby gets to coach them. I don't want whoever comes in place of Nobby now to be the fall guy for what's gone before. That would be horrifically unfair. And I think that if they're still interviewing, then the club still aren't quite sure, or they're dead set on, the sort of person they want in the role. Would Nobby take a step back and just become part of the backroom staff? Maybe that, but again, how can you go from managing these wonderful players to now taking a backward step?
We're talking to managers. Jake, you messaged me last night to say Bobby Wilkinson was there at Hampton. Second time he's seen us recently. He's the current Weymouth manager, went there quite recently. You see him only as scouting because we're playing them soon rather than being interested in the job, Jake?
Oh yeah, definitely just scouting, I believe. I think he was there with another one of his staff. So yeah, I think no worries about that, I suspect. And yeah, we play them next Tuesday, don't we? So I think the whole situation, I think as we've all said, I think this is, Nobby's results are making it more and more difficult for the owners. And, the fans are really getting behind him now. I think the fans are really enjoying having David at the helm. His post-match interviews might not be perfect, but the amount of supporters that I've heard and talked to and said, I actually quite enjoy them because it feels real, that it feels like the true opinions of him.
You can relate to them, mate, can't you?
Yeah, yeah. And it's not just someone talking the talk like a businessman. I think fans just really appreciate it. So it'd be nice to get a decision soon. I don't think we will. And of course, with fixtures, we've got another 2 games coming up in quick succession, haven't we? So we know it's probably not going to be for another, 10 days, if not longer, that we get an idea of what's going to happen. But as we all said, results like last night make the decision make the decision maybe difficult for the owners, but in one way, maybe it should make it easier for them.
With the interviews, I would like to see Will press Nobby a little bit more on the team selection, saying, like last night, why wasn't Devante there? And Joy McKenna Saturday, why wasn't he in the squad? What was the thinking? What was the reason behind that? And that sort of things. And Nobby, I would imagine he'd give a truthful answer, and supporters would know better what's going on team-wise.
I enjoyed the final question last night in the interview, asking if it was going to be a bit of a longer term thing. Nobby didn't quite fall for it though. So, but coming back to Neil, your article and the interview with Nobby, we spoke to Jimmy Gray, didn't we, on here? And that episode is, you can go back and watch it. And he talked about the issues he had of trying to balance work and management, real life and football. And it's a big decision for Nobby to step away from his current full-time post if he wants to become manager, because if things turn suddenly, he might be out of a job in 6 months, and a lot of clubs might not think, oh, should I recruit him? So it's a difficult choice for him. It's a big choice. But I think for fans generally, though, I think we're all pretty happy at the minute, whatever happens.
Could we see it continuing?
In what regard?
Well, because it came out of the blue. The finishing last night, the free flowing, it's better than it was Saturday by a long way. It seems to be the way Nobby wants us to go. We are more attack-minded. Do you think we can keep it going? One of the things Ian kept saying was sides have got used to us now, so they just pack us and stop us from playing. Well, I think this lot have shown they can actually break sides down.
I think they have, because ultimately, when you look at it, let's just take the Dulwich, which is our recent defeat. There was a last-ditch tackle from one of their defenders, which stopped Jeffers getting a second goal on Saturday. Banton had a glorious chance at the back post. Despite the fact that when we're losing games, we're not particularly, we're still creating these chances, and that wasn't happening a month ago. And I think now we've got the players in place to move the ball quickly. And not letting, because under Ian, I think people were too comfortable. They were quite lethargic. They were just sort of going through the motions, and it was going across the pitch and it was coming back again. There was no penetration, there was no purpose, and there was no movement. Touching on what was said there from Neil, that's what opens up teams. And we have got some of the players that we can do that. And we've had a decent patch in all of the games under Nobby so far. And I don't see any reason why that's going to stop all of a sudden, because the only thing that's going to prevent it is going to get more injuries, and ultimately he's going to have to rely on relatively unknown kids to come in and take up the mantle. But until that time comes, then hopefully if he gets the opportunity to have this thing full time, he might be able to go into the market a little bit and get the players that he wants. And hopefully we can kick on. And who knows, boys, because we're not the worst team in the world. As Neil said, we are mid-table, yeah, but with a few quality players and Nobby at the helm, who knows where we can end up in May.
What we've got coming up, we've got Slough Town Saturday, Weymouth Tuesday, then Eastbourne Borough. Blimey, they blow hot or cold. We've got a chance to put a run together now. Put us in a nice position before we place Kidderminster Harriers in the trophy.
Yeah, I think after last night, the whole squad's going to be going to it so much confidence, aren't they? It's just going to be riding a crest of the wave. But, Slough is a difficult place to go. We know that. But their form is a bit hit and miss. I think Nobby will be targeting the next 3 he'll be looking for maximum points, of course, but he's just got to keep the lads playing as they are. And I don't, as Lee said, there's no reason why not. Why change things? Everything's looking very good. And I think players like Mitch coming back, I think will be really important to trying to get this run going now and continuing the form. I think if Mitch plays like he did tomorrow or last night on Saturday, of course we've got a chance. Just the positivity. We've talked about it before, haven't we? We just want to enjoy games. If we lose 4-3, fair enough. But, you know, get some cracking wins in there. And if we can continue that next 3 games, anything's possible.
Can I just say to Neil, you've spoken to Nobby at length. Is he the sort of person that's going to look at the next 3 games in like a bracket of games, or will he just take each game as it comes, given the fact that he's very much in his infancy as a manager?
I think at the minute he's sort of living day by day. I mean, what the reason I asked him about sort of, you know, about learning on the job was it was part of the interview after the Ebbsfleet game last week, and so Will asked him about Michael Johnson's injured, and you could almost see him at that moment going, yeah, I'm going to have to go and get a goalkeeper, aren't I? So you could almost see the cogs turn and think, yeah, Norris is injured as well, isn't he? And then, that's a point, I'm going to have to do that. So he is having to do all of this in one go. I don't think he's looking too far ahead. I mean, he'll have been up a ladder today, and he literally will be thinking, right, what we're doing in training tomorrow on Thursday, and then we'll worry about Slough, and then who's after. He probably hasn't even looked that far ahead, I wouldn't have thought at the minute. He's just trying to get the little minutiae right, and that should hopefully be good enough to beat anyone.
Well, and on that note, perhaps we'll have some predictions for Saturday then, if we can beat anybody. Lee, what are you going for down at Slough then at home to Weymouth?
Well, we won 6-0 last time, so 7-0, 8. No, I'm going to go for a cheeky Slough. I reckon 2-1 Saints, and Weymouth at home. I can see us doing it. I reckon we'll be all right. I reckon go 3-0.
Go on, Jake. Can you be as positive?
I think I'll go 1-0 against Slough. I think I'm tempted to say 2-1. I know I always do, just because surely Johnny Goddard will score, won't he, for Slough? But I think I'll go.
He's struggling to get in their side at the moment.
Well,
so come back to us then.
Yeah,
should never have left.
But I think 1-0 Saints. I think it's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to do Weymouth as well?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. 4-1 Saints.
That's the spirit.
Yeah. It is the spirit.
Before we shoot off, I did want to ask Neil, in the aftermath of Ian's sacking, you wrote a couple of articles, and one of those, I think, publicly for the first time, anyone's put out there that Ian and Dean didn't get on, and you sort of said it was quite widely known amongst the football club and non-league generally. I think. What did you think? Did you think that just made the whole situation? It was almost going to be inevitable that Ian was going to go at some point.
I think so. Yeah, it was, and it's sad because I mean I really like Ian. You know, I think he was being great for the football club. But I think the results at the back end of last season, and then coupled with the start, and then you've got then put the off the field issues on top of that. Yeah, his position was just becoming more and more untenable, and a break for him it'll do him the world of good, I'm sure. I mean, like, he wants to get to 50 years in football, and that's 2 years down the line. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for a gig elsewhere. He might end up at Hendon as Lee's assistant. You never know. That's a kind of thing, but. Yeah, I think it was always going to happen. It's a shame, but you know, football's like that, and you just move on and eventually land on your feet elsewhere.
Of course, he kept his commercial job down at Clarence Park, and he's still going down there every day, apparently, except on match days, which I guess eases the pressure on Nobby if Ian's not seen down there on Saturdays and Tuesdays.
I actually asked, I tried to be a little bit cheeky last night when I was talking to Nobby, and says, you know, have you had a chance to speak to anyone to get like sort of advice on what to do if you're like struggling? have you spoken to Ian, for example? You know, he didn't answer that directly, but he says, yeah, I've been speaking obviously to managers every time we go to a game, and they're saying the same sort of thing. But so yeah, I mean, how long Ian stays down there as commercial manager, I don't know. He's doing a great job for the club, so it's in the club's best interest to keep him in that role. So it'll be up to him in the end, and whether it's worth it for him. But time will tell.
Yeah, he's a great ambassador, isn't he? Because he's so easy to get on with.
Well, we've known it, but like I say, I mean, I started covering Saints in the sort of August, September of 2015, and Ian turned up in the January. So our careers at St Albans have roughly run parallel, and he's always been great with me. Even when I was sort of getting told I wasn't allowed to speak to players, yeah, Ian was almost, well, I'll speak to him. It's like, you know, he's always been great. He's always given you an honest answer, and that's all I ever want from anybody I interview. If you just tell us an answer and I believe you, that's it. So, and he always was. So yeah, he's good at the commercial side. So if he brings money into the club, brilliant.
Brilliant. Right. Anybody else?
No, I think we should thank you, Neil, for coming on. I think it's always a pleasure having you on here.
Why let me hat-trick ball if I come on the next time?
Have a what?
Get a hat-trick ball on this.
It's a cultural reference tabs that you won't get, mate. Don't worry. It's
Oh, dear. No, yeah, thank you very much. And anyone that is watching, I think I'd highly recommend go visit the Herts Ad Sports pages. Read Neil's articles.
other local rags are available. It's meant for them as well, so don't worry. It's all the same.
Well, before we go, there was a bit more to Philip Eaton's note he sent you, Jake.
Oh, God.
Going back in time, we did win 5-1 at Billericay Town. The next game, we won 5-0 at Hampton and Richmond. But we then drew 2 more games, and after that, we were then suspended by the league for 5 weeks. So I was glad when we got off 5-0 last week, because we don't want to last night, because we don't want a repetition of that.
I was going to say, I hope that doesn't happen again. Yeah. On that cheerful note, everyone. Thank you very much for watching.
Take care.
Thanks, Neil, and we'll see you very soon, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks, Neil.
Bye-bye.